Wherever along there is where they would start on their Scantron. Then with the number 2 pencil, filling that in. Once they progress through, they're going to get to the 20th station, which is actually station T. That T also stands for tiebreaker. So on that tiebreaker station, there is going to be sheets where they would fill in fill in the blank type questions. So there's a question, they're going to write it in themselves. That station will only be graded if there are, in fact, ties. So, 2 teams have a tie, we go through that really quick. Those are all 3-point questions, so the value figured out that hopefully will create a score difference. If there is indeed another tie, it goes to the number of 3-point questions. Number of 3-point questions answered correctly, then 2 points, and then 1 point if there is that many ties. It's very, very rare, but it can happen. There should be only 1 or 2 students per team. We have to check on a rule with the coordinator because someone raised that, I think during one of the tests there is an alternate allowed in.
During the district competition, we have 1 alternate, but at the regional, I think you can only have 2 people.
So that's something that you would want to check back on the FAQ section of Wildlife Safari. That'll be answered on there. Let's see. The book is Fish of Michigan by Dave Bosanko. You may already have a copy of this. If not, you can find it online many different places. Amazon, I think, definitely has it. But what do you say? Barnes and Nobles and other bookstores you can find online as well. And basically, anything that is fish related in here is game for the test. Besides about the author.
And nothing about the Michigan records or world records. That none of that's going to be on the test. Okay. But everything else.
And only identifying information about fish. Or
Yeah. Like if we're going to talk about size or anything, the average size probably would be in there. But with state records, David's raised a good point. There may have been new records since this has been caught. There's also a lot of discrepancy with state records. Like one state wants to have the world record, so they both say, oh, we have unregistered records. So this actually talks about that in here, but it's just there's so many inconsistencies with it, we left it out. But so looking at this, there'll be questions that we pull out. Identifying the fish would be a 3-point question, because you're going to have a photo. Or, we might possibly use images from this book if we scan them, but more often it's going to be a photo that we find from a reputable source online. And so think like National Geographic, eNature, archive.org. There's all these different nature-oriented websites. We're not just pulling off of just any website. Like if it's a nature center or like a nature magazine, things like that.
And then some state DNR sites will have a list of fish. You can click on the link. Give you a picture of that particular fish.
Then continuing on with this, if you see anything that comes from like a meatier section of information, like a paragraph, pretty much 2 sentences on up to a paragraph, those questions that would be pulled from that information would be worth 2 points. If it's something like, well, what's the average size of a bass? Well, you just go to average size. The information is pretty straightforward. That's a 1-point question, in addition to true and false. True and false is like a 50-50 chance on it, so that's a 1-point question as well. And again, the fill in the blank for the tiebreaker, those are 3-point questions.
Then for the fill in the blank, we're not checking for spelling, so if some of the words are misspelled, then that's okay.
Like, people always ask, scientific names included, yes, they are, but if they don't know how to spell them, as long as the phonetic, spelling is on there, that's good enough. As long as we know it's being identified.
The station T that you're talking about, are there multiple questions?
Yeah. So for the tiebreaker station, there'll be 10 fill in the blank, and those will be used in a tiebreaker only. So if they get them all wrong, or if they get them all right, if there's no tie between that team and another team, then it will be used.
Yeah. And someone will be starting at that station, unless I guess we could address this. We'll be starting at that station. unless we, I guess we could address it as like in the very beginning.
Yeah, well, so they'll come in, the kids will come in, it's gonna be a classroom of about this size. It's gonna be like an L, sort of L shape of tables. There'll be 20 stations, so each group of 2 will start at each station, and then we have them move clockwise around the room until each kid has had an opportunity to do each station.
There is 30 minutes in the room. The test takes about 20 minutes. Basically, when the students come in, we'll go over just the short little rules again, answer any last minute questions the students may have. The quick reminder is always, make sure your school name and number is on your Scantron as well as your tiebreaker sheet. Make sure you're using a pencil for your Scantron, remember 2 pencil in particular, that you're not Xing or circling. That happens on occasion, that they have to, fill it in properly, not sloppy. Things like that. Let them know that they're gonna have a minute per station to answer all their questions, and then they'll move on to the next station. They'll just kind of keep rotating through to, how many was it, 105 questions?
105 questions.
Including the tiebreaker?
Including the tiebreaker.
So they'll have a minute at each station, and then if they do not answer a question, we always encourage them, I guess it's better than leaving it blank, because there's at least a percentage chance that you're gonna get that right. Could help you. So if they do not finish all of station B, and they rotate through, they're not gonna get to go back there. So the best thing would be just to fill in, then get ready for that next station.
And then make sure you're at the room on time, because if you come in 5 minutes late, your team will be starting at that point. They won't have an opportunity to go back and try and make up those stations that they missed. Well, then for field guide, so you can use either this field guide. What people did last year is they created their own field guides based on sort of information in this book. Some people cut the spine off, like a 3-ring binder type of thing, or even they spiral bound it, so that way when the book it will say open a little easier. And then in terms of studying, in the book it's just sort of drawings of fish. It would probably be better if for your students, your kids, to actually study actual pictures rather than these paintings, because the pictures we're not using any drawings or paintings for ours. Ours are going to be all pictures of real fish.
Well, I already told them that there is a chance that, yeah.
Okay.
There is, I mean, if we can't find a good enough resource online, we probably would just refer back to the book. More than likely, they're pictures,
But so far we've been able to find pictures for everything.
Exactly. There is, I mean, if we can't find a good enough resource online, we probably would just refer back to the book. More than likely, they're pictures,
But so far we've been able to find pictures for everything.
Exactly. So the students can create one field guide. So one student could have a field guide, this one, another one could have a student created one. That student creation process is actually really good as a studying technique, because they're writing everything down. It kind of helps you memorize it. And there's ownership of that field guide. Because they created it, they might know exactly where to go for the information. Essentially, you would just be recreating this however way you feel fit. All of the information would come from here, and the only other real requirement is that it's bounded. So it's not just loose papers flying everywhere.
Yeah.
We did have, you, like David was saying, you could include pictures and these pictures, or the pictures from the internet and the paintings, just to kind of help in that process.
There was one or two incidents last year with the student-created field guides that everything fell out of the binder and sort of got mixed up all over the floor. So if you do make one of those, you want to make sure it's secure. I felt bad, for the kids, because it fell out while they were moving from station to station, and I think they got so distracted by that it was hard for them to actually finish the rest of the test. So if you do make one of those, make sure it's bound pretty secure, so you won't have stuff falling out of it.
Students are responsible for bringing the pencils. This happens every year that we've been involved. Kids walk in the room, they don't have any writing utensil at all. The teacher's room that we're in may have spare pencils, may not. It's not our classroom, so if there's one sitting at the desk, sometimes we can hand them out, but if there's not, there's not. So be sure that your teams have,
It might be good to have like maybe like 3 or 4 pencils, just in case like the lead breaks on one of them. And sometimes if kids will leave a pencil, then we'll save those if we need any backups for the other session.
there's gonna be a picture per station excluding the tiebreaker. So this image could be at any point in the test. So like, there might be a couple questions before and then maybe you're identifying later on, like you was talking about certain topics.
And then there's going to be at least 3 stations where it's going to be like a hodgepodge of questions. So the first question in that station might be a picture, identify this fish disease. The next question might be, what disease does that, or what disease does that, or what fish is affected by that disease? Then the very next question might be, how many miles of streams and rivers does Michigan have? So it could be a sort of hodgepodge, but not every station, there's only going to be like maybe 2 or 3 of them. All the rest of them are going to be set up just exactly like that one. And there won't be any fish call related questions like there were last year with the amphibians.
Any questions? Yes.
So everything's gonna be from that field?
Exactly, no external
No crazy
sources.
stuff like last year?
Yeah, no.
That's
a new lesson learned.
Everything last year was in the field guide.
No, there was
Remember we
a
had the
whole
list that
additional
you
list of fish that.
Oh, I'm sorry,
were,
yeah, for the,
yeah,
there
I'm like,
there's not gonna be
no.
anything like that.
I'm like,
yeah,
that was
yeah.
over the top for those.
So everything is gonna be, right from this one field guide.
Okay.
I walked in a few minutes late, so I don't know if you mentioned, this year at the zoo, do they have any things for us to come and take a look at?
The zoo doesn't have many native fish species.
Okay.
The Bell
We
Isle
have-
Zoo is too,
we
the
have a-
aquarium on Bell Isle.
Yeah, we have, at the nature zoo where I work, we have a common carp and a yellow perch. Those are pretty easy to identify. The aquarium on Belle Isle has, I'm not sure how many native fish species that they have, but they do have a tank, several tanks that have some native fish. The Sterling Heights Nature Center has a nice big fish tank. Bass Pro Shop generally has the big native fish tank. Some of those big outdoor stores too will even have a bunch of like fish taxidermy on the wall. So that may be a good place to kind of come in and maybe just study how those fish look. Cabela's also has a nice big, really huge, that's in Dundee, has a really big native fish.
In addition to that, one thing I think a lot of team event leaders do, or like they create flashcards for identification and whatnot, which is always a good technique to practice with as well. Yes.
Make sure I understand this correctly. Students are allowed to bring in that guide, and then they can also make up their own, so they have 2.
Yeah, they'll have 2 guides. So whether it's 1 student or 2 students, they could bring 2 books in total. So the purchased one and as well as the created.
So it's like one
guide.
student can have this and, it's one of this and the student created one, they can't have 4. So it'd be one resource per student.
Okay, so we total of 4 between 2 kids.
No.
A total of 2,
2.
yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is my first time doing this. Do most people send in 2 students so that you could have both concentrating on the question and then one
So in
being
terms of, if you
scribe?
want, if kids have tried, they were like, hey, you take the even ones, I take the odd ones. Every instant of that, it's too hard. You got one kid trying to answer the even ones, another kid trying to do the odd ones. If they work together, sort of as a group, it makes going through the test a lot easier. Yeah. Because they only have one Scantron, they wouldn't have 2. So if you're just trying to fill in, different square at the same time, it can be a little hectic.
Yeah.
It says here that you can put like, tabs on the books, but not the Post-its, or we.
Yeah, we don't want like, if there's post-it inside with additional information, but if you put tabs as like, this is
So
the
these are.
sunfish
That-
family.
that would be
Right on
okay,
those tabs, Because
yeah.
I mean, I know that's what I was gonna see it here, okay.
It helps you, it does help you like get to certain information, like if I'm looking for something, I think this is in the pike family, and I have a tab, it's much faster than like
And the book is organized.
If you do notice though, the book is fairly organized with the top, because if you look at it, it has the shape of the fish, the name of the fish, and the colors change as you go through them.
And it's
so
all
it is-
organized, all the members of the sunfish family are in the same section of the book, so the book is organized by family already. Yeah.
Last thing, I was just wondering, do you have any tips for keeping it really interesting for the kids? Have you had
I
any
think
feedback?
there's a variety of things you could do. I mean, one, going to explore those nature centers or like the sporting goods stores is one thing. Maybe actually going fishing and trying to identify them. That could be one thing.
And then there was a couple of people last year, they created like their own sort of like test
Yeah.
stations for the kids to go through. And I know the metro parks, there was 2 people in here the last session. They actually have things where you can come in and go through sort of like their practice sessions to help kind of prepare you for the actual test.
With the fish anatomy, is it their external fish anatomy or internal?
Anything in the book.
Anything in the book.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a diagram where some like the internal organs are labeled, so the kids should know that. And then there's a diagram where all the different fins and all that. So yeah, anything in the book is fair game, except the national. We won't have the state records or the world records. None of that information will be in the test.
Do they need to know it?
No, because if you look at there's like a section where it says like records, you won't have to know any of that stuff. But like the average size, you'll have to know.
Okay.
But anything about like Michigan records or state records, that's not going to be on the test because a lot of those have probably changed since the book was
Thank
published.
you.
Anything else?
Quizlet makes really good flashcards.
Okay.
Quizlet, is that an online resource? Okay, Quizlet.
You can make up your own flashcards, it has games, it kind of creates.
It's like a formatting for everything.
Yep, yep, you can put pictures on there, everything.
Okay. And just, it's just a thing for the kids to have fun. They're not going to be graded on, well, I mean, they will be graded, but, what they get on is not going to impact like their grades in, elementary school or anything like that. And just the funnier you keep it, I think the funnier the kids will have. And it's a good way to it's a good way for, parents and kids to learn about, native wildlife. Because a lot of people, how else would you learn, about some of these things unless you did the actual, science of it. And just, it's just a thing for the kids to have fun. They're not going to be graded on, well, I mean, they will be graded, but, what they get on is not going to impact like their grades in, elementary school or anything like that. And just the funnier you keep it, I think the funnier the kids will have. And it's a good way to it's a good way for, parents and kids to learn about, native wildlife. Because a lot of people, how else would you learn, about some of these things unless you did the actual, science of it. And probably some advice, probably the hardest ones to identify are probably the members of the sunfish family. So those would probably be ones you would want to make sure you work extra hard on with the kids. Because when it comes to other things, they're pretty pretty straightforward. They have look at the coloration, look at the fins. For example, like the walleye has sort of like a white tip on the tail, whereas the sauger doesn't have that. So each of those little identifying characteristics will help you identify the fish a lot faster. Some of them even have like these extra sort of extensions of their dorsal fins, and some of the sunfish, like their fins they're not rounded, they kind of come up to a point like that almost. And then that's another good way to kind of identify that species from amongst the other members of the sunfish.
I have a question about the different workshops that I see going on at like the Metro Parks or the Shea Bush Nature Center. Is there pre-registration for some of those? And do you know where to go to get to do the pre-registration?
You just call the nature center.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then we won't be doing any sort of like practice sessions at all. We'll just be doing the actual facilitating. We'll be doing one district test, and then we'll be doing the regional test. And like the district test, it's a good practice to kind of get kids used to the format with the timing and the setup and all that.
Is that the one similar to what they did at Mallow last year before the event?
Yeah, I think there's like, is there 4 or 5, I think, district competitions? Yeah.
So that's the pre to
Yeah,
going before the
yeah.
competition?
And then the regional one is sort of like the big.
The competition.
So will each station will it just be pertaining to that one fish? Right.
Most
there
of
are
them-
most
most of them,
stations like
yeah.
that, but then there's some.
But you are gonna
that
have some,
extra.
they're gonna have a couple different fish, so.
There might have there could be stations where there's information from the entire book. There's just like a handful of them per test, so it's not like an overwhelming amount, but there could be
Okay.
something on like fish diseases,
In general.
anatomy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The overwhelming majority are like this, though, where it's more focused on one species at a
Stations,
time, but
those
it is
stations, okay,
a mix
okay.
of things.
So you said it's gonna be Scantron and fill in the blank, so there's gonna be 2 answer sheets.
The fill in the blank is only for one station, that's
Yeah.
for station 20 or station T. That's our tiebreaker station, each fill in the blank would be 3 points, whereas everything else is on Scantron. And it's very important to make sure that they start with Scantron when they're at that station. Everything's numbered like it is a complete test, but as you move through it, you're gonna start with every
And if they get every question wrong on the tiebreaker, if they get every question right, we'd only use that in the event that if there's a tie between 2 teams. So the overall, if they get like, let's say, I'm not sure how many points we have in our test, if they get like 105 questions from the multiple choice, you don't add on the extra stuff from the tiebreaker. It's only used in, I think we had maybe less than 10 instances where we had to use the actual tiebreaker station last year.
So there's a separate sheet of paper?
Yeah, and we'll have that sheet of paper right at station T. Yeah.
So like one of us would just be collecting it every single time
Yeah.
that they finish
So
the
they won't
cycle.
carry it around?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, and then make sure they write, when they come in, make sure they write their team name and their team number.
Yeah, it's surprising how often we get students that come in on their teams and they don't know the team number.
Yeah. And it took us a while last year to track down some of the coaches, because we had no idea who,
Yeah, because there was a couple of schools that had 2 teams or something.
Yeah, and it took us a while last year to track down some of the coaches, because we had no idea who,
Yeah, because I think there was a couple of schools that had 2 teams or something.
Then there was one instance where I think each school had the same number, and then the kids each wrote that number, but they didn't have a school name, so that we didn't know which was which, so they need the team name and the team number, which I believe the name is just the name of the school.
One of the things that they recommended last year when we picked up on your bracelets, just write it on your bracelet, but when you give it to the kids, that way they have it on them all day long, and they don't even have to think about it.
Or if they can't remember their school name or number, also have them write their full name on the Scantron, so that would help us to kind of figure out, who.
They don't have to write their name, it's just a school name, right?
If they don't.
If they can't remember,
That's like
they'll-
one resource for us to find but as long as they know the school name or number,